Hello, Sinead. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. If you'd please introduce yourself.
Hello, yeah. I am Sinead. I live in Brighton and I know I'm 14 months postpartum now. I think it was around the year mark of my daughter, her first birthday, that I started reflecting a lot on the birth. And I hadn't really processed a lot of it for the first part. And then it was just nice to, around her first birthday, reflect back and I
Mm.
had like really positive memories actually, and thinking about how much I relied on this podcast leading up to it. So I had this real strong feeling like I wanted to try and come back on the show and
Yeah.
contribute to the community of stories, which really helped me as well.
Yeah, I love that. I love it's such a full circle for lots of people because they come
Yeah.
back on and share their stories, and then lots of other people find them useful. And it is a bit of a community. I really like that everyone's just trying to help everybody else, which is what's
Yeah,
really nice about it. You just want to put the positivity out there because you know how helpful it is.
that's it. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's,
nice.
I think it was just really difficult, I think, when I first learned about hypnobirthing to start accessing real life stories.
Mm,
As obviously I discovered from the history of hypnobirthing and understand the principles, is unlearning the kind of dramatic stories we heard about birth and what we've seen through media and everything. So
yeah.
when I got that into my mind, I really tried to source like real life stories that weren't
Mm,
there for entertainment purposes. And then
yeah.
finding this podcast was really helpful for that as well, and just normalizing it and taking the fear out of it. And remember just typing into YouTube as well, just typical birth stories, things like that. Anything that wasn't, some of them were, I'd go as far to say boring, but that was good
Yeah,
because
yeah,
I wanted to feel like there was nothing too crazy to
yeah,
hear. It was like this could be something normal, not a dramatic situation that, you know,
yeah.
shaped someone's life negatively. So,
Yeah, boring's the right word.
yeah.
You sort of, I always say that as lovely as, and as lovely as the positive, straightforward births are, which obviously they
Mm.
are just sort of boring. So when it comes to, something on TV showing a birth, or I'm sure I've referenced it so many times, but documentaries like One Born Every Minute and programs like that,
Mm.
they're just not going to show that type of birth because
No.
it is just boring. And
Yeah.
having a 60-minute program of textbook, straightforward, boring births is not
Yeah.
entertaining enough for anybody.
But
But they are out there. And I think that's, your
you have to
point is
look
that
for
they're
them a little
there.
bit
Yeah.
harder. That it's just not
Yeah.
very easy to find, and
Yeah.
it's nuts really that women's birth stories have become entertainment purposes.
Yeah.
It's something that has become part of our culture as well. I realised I'd been exposed to so many of these births through, if it's a soap that I was watching when I was
Yeah.
younger or a film, there's always a dramatic scene which
Mm.
involves this
Always.
really kind of house burning down birth. And
Mm.
that kind of led me to really fear it as well. Even before I even thought about having a child, I always thought, because I'm a squeamish person, that
Right.
I would be one of those people on the screens that was having the worst time. So I guess when I found out I was pregnant, I was aware that I needed to do a bit of work to guide myself into not really fearing this upcoming, what felt like
Yeah.
a bit like a doomsday that was coming. But the more I learned about it, it was so great to find, like, to access all this information and realize there was a whole community of women that were feeling the same as well and sharing this information. It felt really empowering to join
Yeah.
that as well. But again, I felt like you had to look quite hard to find it. I'd
Mm.
never heard of the concept of hypnobirthing
Right. Yeah.
before any of this. And I think I was about 5 or 6 months in, and someone mentioned the word, and I was like, what is that? I thought it was, yeah, some sort of hypnosis, which there's an
Mm.
element of it within there. But it was two or three people along my journey that mentioned it to me and said, have you heard about that or thought about using it? And I think on the second or third time, I was like, I'm going to look into this now
Yeah.
because there seems to be this sort of hidden world. And I think I'd had a hard first trimester. I was feeling really ill. and quite overwhelmed. I was quite anxious as well. And then the second trimester, I seem to have just been given some serum to give me energy and feel more positive and get through it. And it was the summer months, so that was quite helpful as well. And it was then in the second trimester that I was able to think about, okay, what do I need to prepare for this?
Mm-hmm.
And I work in mental health services. So I think when I learned about the mindfulness element of it, I was straight away connected, and I didn't need any convincing of the power that mindfulness can have. And I thought that'd be really helpful for me to sort of keep on track as well. And then, so I was watching loads of videos, listening to your podcast, and just picking up little tips along the way from people that have come on this show about things that they use that helped them. And that was things that they'd said in the run up to birth, but also during the process of birth as well. I think there was something mentioned about aromatherapy, which I tried a little bit of that as well, which I found quite helpful, and doing long mindful practices in the bath, which I found, I guess there was something about, because this was winter as well by my third trimester, is like, could light loads of candles and go into a sort of meditative state. And I'd never given that much time to mindfulness before. I'd done a little bit of it, and it's something that I really did believe in, but I'd done little snapshots of it, I think, to work into my day. But I started to dedicate a lot of time to this by my third trimester, of really carving out time in my day to try and keep a positive mindset and sort of flood my mind with positive feelings about birth and what was coming, and trying to undo fear and anxiety that I'd had before. I also got loads of cards. I don't know where I got them from, but little positive birth stories that I started to create a wall in the living room of little helpful quotes. And I would spend looking at that every day as well. And there was one particularly that stood out, which was, I take control of what I can and let go of what I can't.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah, and I thought that was really helpful for me as well, because I just had this idea of, oh, what if I can't do this? And what if I guess there was like the control element of it. But what I also really liked about hypnobirthing was the fact that it asks you to arm yourself with loads of knowledge, so that whatever happens during your birth, you are going to feel some level of control over it, because you know and understand what's going on. And I think there was a framework, I think it was called the brain framework, that I picked up as well, which was, if something suggested to you during birth, have you thought about this medical intervention or this one, give yourself, even if it's, you can always, there's no emergency in birth a lot of the time, sometimes there is, but you can always grab maybe 10 minutes of time to process the information you've been given, weigh up the pros and cons of it. And having done that research before on what these different options would be for medical interventions, that took the fear out of it for me as well, of, okay, so if I did get into a situation where I'd need to go to hospital and the situation could turn and I'd be offered these different interventions, I felt confident in knowing what they were and the benefits and risks to them, so that even that helped me to open my mind up to what the experience of hospital would be like. Because I think when I first mentioned to people that I'd found hypnobirthing and I was planning to do a home birth, I did get a bit of a, not frosty reception, but I think people were a bit confused, because again, even like me, I wouldn't have known all of this stuff before. So understandably, people were a bit confused hearing it. And I think maybe they were worried that I was going to just fix on one way of having a birth, which would be to be at home with my twinkling lights and everything, and that I wasn't going to be open to going to hospital. And that's, I think, a bit of a myth about hypnobirthing, because what it does teach you is just arming yourself with all of that knowledge, so that you can be navigating your own care as your birth happens. So it's empowering, and it's not saying don't go to hospital, don't trust any of these things. It's just arming you with the information of what the benefits and risks are of those procedures, and then letting you make that decision, and asking you to trust your instincts into knowing how to handle your birth. So
that's a good point. I think you're right. When somebody says about home birth, I think that for other people outside who don't quite understand it, I think there's the misconception that they're like hell bent on this one particular way of
Mm,
birth, and they're going to put themselves in danger potentially just to say they've had a home birth. And
yeah,
it's women in labor, they typically don't put themselves in danger or their child in
yeah,
danger because it's just an instinct thing. So we just don't we know we are in our bodies and we know when something doesn't feel right, and it's
yeah,
very sort of untrusting of the woman giving birth to just
yeah,
assume that we'd be hell bent on just I'm just so I can say I've had a home birth, I'm going to go against my instinct of what feels unsafe. And
yeah,
of course, we can plan a home birth, we can plan any type of birth, and then have the freedom to change our mind if something doesn't feel right, and that's completely
exactly.
acceptable, you know.
Yeah, and I love that hypnobirthing will say trust your instincts and feel connected to your body and mind, so that you can guide it as well. Because
Mm.
I think that's not just like a good thing for birth, but kind of any time. And
Yeah.
also, it sort of lays the foundation for becoming a parent.
When
And
you have a baby, you have to
yeah,
trust your instincts, don't you,
that's
with
it.
it?
It's a good
Absolutely.
build up to what's to come on
Mm.
the other side of
Yeah.
trusting what you think. And actually, sometimes it's with there's so much outside noise, you can
Mm.
lose connection with your gut instinct because you can absorb so much information
Yeah.
elsewhere. But if you make an intention to think about what you're actually feeling
Mm.
and doing that inner work, it's a really powerful tool to have
Yeah.
the birth and afterwards as well.
Yeah, we've got so much info now, I think, which
Mm,
is really helpful in one way. But I think also when it comes to parenting and when it comes obviously to pregnancy and birth, there is a lot of info, but you can read anything online that kind of backs up what you want it to say. You can find
yeah,
any opinion anywhere, can't you,
exactly.
that
Yeah,
sort of backs it up, and
the echo
it can be so
chamber.
confusing. And I think when you are then parenting, we've kind of lost that ability to go by instincts, because
Yeah,
everything we can just Google everything straight away. Oh, what does
yeah,
this mean? What does that mean? What does the Wonder Weeks app say is happening? And
yeah.
actually, it's, you know, those things are useful
Mm,
to a degree, but we do have to rely a little bit. I know that there's been times where like one of my kids has been unwell, and you kind of don't you whether actually they're actually fine, they're just
yeah,
not well, or actually maybe I do need to take them to the doctor or to A&E or something like that. And you know, you can distinguish that because you have instincts in you
yeah,
to know what's going on. And it's
yeah.
so important, it happens in birth as well.
It starts with trusting yourself and
Yeah.
taking the time to think about what you're feeling and be connected with your body and mind. So I think it's just really powerful, and it's there's so many different aspects to it. There's the like learning the information about birth. I didn't know any of that before either, and I love
Mm,
how intros into hypnobirthing will start to describe the stages of labor and exactly what's happening in your body. And that made me feel really calm about going
yeah.
into labor, because I was like, okay, so I have a framework to go by. I'll know now after what I've learned which stage I'm in and what to expect. And I loved hearing that it wasn't this real rush of emergency. Like again,
Mm.
on TV screens, it's the woman's waters break
Yeah,
and then
always. They go
quick,
straight to the
it's all
hospital.
hell stations. And learning just there's different time frames of when a baby
Yeah.
arrives after that was just even things like that. Those little bits of information can really help to destigmatize birth and made me feel really calm about it. And some of the episodes on here that really helped as well was, I think there was one with, is it Dr. Stew,
Yeah.
who was, I think he was a gynecologist before and then
Yeah, obstetrician. Yeah, obstetrician he is.
obstetrician, and
Yeah,
then
yeah,
started, he'd worked delivering babies a lot by C-section and then started learning about home
yeah.
birth, going
He
out into
worked
the
with
field.
midwives. Yeah,
Yeah, and that
yeah,
was really interesting as well to see that he'd had sort of a change of mindset as well from,
yeah,
first of all, he realized that he had fear about birth and some of the staff
yeah,
did as well. And then to actually go out into home settings and see it, he realized, oh, it's not this scary thing that we have maybe
yeah.
like worried about as well. So that
And
was
he's
really
an
helpful.
obstetrician.
Yeah,
He's somebody who we are taught that we trust because they
exactly.
are medical and they are qualified and experienced and much more medically qualified than
Yeah,
most of us. So we are taught throughout our lives to trust them. And then when you hear somebody who had been in that position and who had adhered to that system and all the policies coming out and saying, yeah, I did all that stuff, and it's only now that I realize actually that was not right and it was not the way to do things, and I've seen it
yeah,
different. It really does
that was
knock
powerful.
that trust. And actually,
Yeah.
like we said, that has to start with, the trust really has to be with yourself first and foremost above anybody
Mm.
else. You have to have that trust in yourself first, because even medical professionals get it wrong.
Yeah,
They just do.
exactly. And I think he said something as well, or maybe another midwife on here said that these practices are there to keep, they can be really helpful to keep women safe and
Mm-hmm.
reduce some things that have happened that may have happened in a different way in the past. But it's it's not treating everyone with the same brush, and then it's like trying to look at it as a case by case basis
Mm.
and understand that person, and maybe that comes back down to like the midwife appointment as well, when it says what kind of risk are you, is it low risk, medium or high risk?
Mm.
And it was, I guess, there that I'd got the idea of home birth, because but I answered loads of questions, and then my midwife said, okay, so you're coming up as low risk from the assessment, have you thought about a home birth?
Wow.
And up until that point I hadn't considered it at all. And I think because I'd had a good relationship with her leading up to it, and she described that outside of those sessions she does home births as well, I said, okay, well, let me have a think about it. And I guess then maybe that was around the time I started learning about hypnobirthing as well, and about the idea of being in your most relaxed state to have
Mm.
the baby, and what the environment looks like. And for me, being a bit squeamish and things like that, I thought being at home would be the place that I would feel most at ease, and I could control some of those things,
Yeah.
like lighting and like that multi-sensory experience that could help
Mm.
with the way of relaxing for birth. So yeah, that's kind of the point where I decided to have the home birth. And
Amazing.
yeah, but I guess I did a lot of work. It was all really positive, and my due date was 17th of December. So I was doing all my homework and I was feeling really good and looking at all my quotes. This is leading up to the birth. And then a day past the 17th. And one of the things I learned in hypnobirthing was to not take too much from the due date, because
Mm.
it's just an estimation and the percentages of babies that come on that time is really low. But that's one thing that I wasn't able to fully
Yeah.
digest through all of my learning through hypnobirthing. I'd convinced myself that I was okay with that, and I wasn't going
Yeah.
to be fixing on the date. But I must admit, when it passed the 17th, every day felt a bit,
Mm.
it almost felt like a bit like a failure. Like, why hasn't she come yet? And I was trying to
Yeah.
convince myself, no, my baby will come when they are ready, which was one of the quotes. But I was really strong. I must have put more into that due date than I'd thought. And that
It's
was a bit
very hard.
scary.
It's really hard. I think
Mm,
that is. I always so try and prepare my doula clients. I really try to prepare them for,
mm,
particularly first timers, for what happens if they do go past that date. Because I
yeah,
think, like you said, as much as we do know that it is just a guess, we know it's not accurate. We know it's highly unlikely that the baby's going to come then. We know that most people do go over that due date. We know all of this stuff.
yeah,
It is still different reality when it's actually happening, and the pressure that I think we put on ourselves and
mm,
obviously that the system puts on us is really easy to underestimate. And
mm,
yeah, I have it so often with doula clients, and they go past that day and I can see they're freaking out
yeah,
because you just are like, I just what if the baby, like, I don't want to have the induction conversation. I don't want
Yeah,
to do this. So I need this baby to come. But the more you stress out about it, obviously, the less the baby is going to
that's
come. But
right.
it's so common
Mm,
and it's so difficult. It really is. And if you think about it, your whole life, you have been, you hear about the due date, baby's due,
mm,
this time, baby's whatever. So it is really hard to undo that because it is
yeah.
all we've known about babies have a due date. And if they come after that, then they are late. And that's
Yeah, but
all we've
late.
learned. Yeah.
And I think because it was around Christmas time, I was
Yeah.
worried that we were approaching Christmas Day, and I really
Yeah.
didn't want her to come on Christmas Day. And I thought, okay, what's my cutoff point where I'd be happy for her to come? And
Yeah.
I'm trying to stop these things, but they were just going around in
Yeah.
my head. And I was like, okay, I think maybe the 22nd would be the latest I'd like to go. And that's my mum's birthday as well. So I was thinking it
Oh.
wouldn't be ideal if it was the 22nd, maybe the 21st. And you start thinking about all these scenarios of, okay, we'll do the birthday on that day and then we'll do this. And then my mind was just going a bit overtime. And then the 22nd passed, the 23rd passed. And then we got to 24th and I was like, okay, this is getting way too close to Christmas. And I was linked with the home birth team, and someone at that point, because I was 41 weeks, someone was coming out every day to just check my vitals and everything,
Okay.
and they'd said, oh, the team are really short staffed at the moment, so don't
It's
have the
Christmas.
baby today.
Oh, all right.
And she looked at her diary and she said, yeah, maybe the next couple of days, and then after that we'll be fully stocked.
Oh my gosh, as if you have that control over it.
Yeah, so I was thinking, okay, now this is not just about avoiding Christmas as a birthday, but it's actually about making sure that the staff are there as well, because they're an amazing team, but there's not many of them here in
Yeah.
Barton. So I'd heard a couple of stories through the grapevine of people that had wanted a home birth, but because the team weren't there, they'd had to go into hospital. And
Mm.
I'm kind of glad I'd heard that as well, because I wanted to pre-prepare for that as well. Everything I wanted to know in advance and feel like I had some understanding about it before. So I was like,
Yeah.
okay, that happens. We've got the hospital bag ready. We'll go in and we'll just try and recreate these little aspects as much as possible. So I just kept flooding my mind with, it's okay if they're not there. We'll just change of plan, but I know what to expect from the other route as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then the 25th happened, and there was definitely no sign of her then. At this point, my back had gone. I don't know how. I'd been really active throughout pregnancy. And then in this last 2 weeks, I really struggled with my lower back. And that was difficult because I'd found walking really helpful to keep my mind focused and everything. And on Christmas Day, me and my partner just waddled. I was literally waddling down to the beach. It took about half an hour to walk 2 seconds, and that it was good though because it was a really nice sunny day, and I felt this sense of calm actually because I thought, okay, well now we're sort of getting past the 25th.
Yeah.
I realized I'd let go of a bit of tension around the build up to Christmas, and
Which
I was
could have
like,
been what was
okay,
stopping it. You just,
yeah,
it's
I
so
think it was.
subconscious. Yeah.
Yeah, I think looking back on it, I was holding a lot of tension from the 17th onwards, and I really think that probably did contribute to. She ended up coming on the 30th. So I went into labour on the
Mm-hmm.
29th. So
Yeah.
4 days later, I had the 2 week, I was 2 weeks over. And this is the point where the home birth team, they said, okay, we'll have to explain to you that you do fall into a category where it might be more likely that we'd offer you induction, but you don't have to go with this process. They explained the benefits and the risks.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, we will offer you a scan at 42 weeks plus one, where we'll just check on the baby. So that was booked in, I think, for the 30th or the 31st.
Yeah.
And they weren't pushing me at all. They were just saying, just be
Good.
guided by how you're feeling and things like that. So they're a really supportive team. And then on the 29th, yeah, it was the 29th, in the middle of the night, I started to feel contractions, and I just knew they were different. I had lots of Braxton Hicks for weeks leading up to it, which was, I think, had led me to think she was coming early as well.
Yeah.
But now these contractions started, I knew it was different, and it felt really familiar to me, this sensation. It was like a period cramp or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really curious to know what it was going to feel like, because, you know, you just have no idea really. But
No.
the sensations that I felt throughout were like, they didn't feel too far fetched. It was like, oh yeah, this sensation. Like I've
Yeah,
felt
like you
this
felt it
before.
before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it wasn't this new feeling that I
Yeah.
had no connection with. So that was comforting as well. So I started logging the contractions on the app, and then they were quite far apart. So I was like, okay, I think we've got a bit of time here. I was aware that this can go on even for a few days as well. So I was trying not to feel in a rush or anything. I was just
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, this is the start of it, but we'll see what happens. And then I'd heard other people in this podcast as well talking about just trying to keep as calm as possible during that time as well, like doing nice things that will help you produce oxytocin. So I knew that I needed to get a hot chocolate and an almond croissant, because that was
Oh, nice.
my cravings. Well, probably still is now, but I knew that that was going to make me feel good. So we went down to my local cafe. It took 40 minutes to walk there. It's about a 5 minute walk usually. And I was having contractions on the way there. I noticed they were getting a bit closer together, but I was like, no, I need my almond croissant. We're going to get this. And so we sat down and had that. I was with my partner, and there was a woman on the other side of the cafe who'd, I think she'd clocked that something was going on with me, because every now and again I just sort of go over and hold my stomach, and then I'd say, oh yeah, that was another one. And then like take another bite of my croissant. And I think she'd thought, what is going on there? But she just didn't say anything. And then I was like, okay, how do we keep this positivity flowing when we get back home? So we ordered Wizard of Oz to stream as something just a
Oh,
bit Christmassy, and like
yeah.
it's very colourful. So I thought, oh yeah, that would be good. And I was
Yeah.
doing like had the ball out, and I was like moving around on that. And there was a lot of movements that I'd learned through pregnancy yoga that I was just kind of doing non-stop actually on the floor in the living room as I was watching that. And we had hired a birth pool as well for the living room, which I don't know if we were told or we assumed that the best time to blow it up was when the contractions start every 3 minutes. So we'd kept that in the background, just kind of ignoring it. And I was very visible in the living room. And then I think at some point I just disappeared into the bathroom. And then I don't know how long I was in there. I think time seemed to just
Yeah, it
like
does.
really stretch or go really quickly. I'm not sure. Time was completely
Yeah.
unattainable. It's really strange. But I was at this point, I'd taken my phone and I was listening to a playlist from the pregnancy yoga that I'd gone to. And it was kind of just this repetitive, really calming music that we'd listen to at the end of yoga when you're just lying
Yeah.
down and resting. And I found it really helpful. So that was going in the background. I think I had a little glow lamp in there as well. And I'd got the TENS machine and I'd put that on my back. And because at this point, the contractions had geared up a little bit. And I'd put the TENS machine on. And I was just pressing the button to match them as they were going along. And that TENS machine was amazing. I found it
Mm.
really, really helpful, because it comes back to the idea of distracting the mind,
Mm-hmm.
because when the contraction happens, the brain will just focus on that area, and then you'll experience pain differently. But with the TENS machine, suddenly you get this vibration, and then your brain's distracted and looking like,
Yeah.
what's that? And it takes away the focus on contraction. So that, yeah, that was really, really helpful for me. And I was just kind of doing circles around the sink and holding onto the sink. And yeah, again, I don't know how long I was in there, but the next thing you know, I was just automatically logging the contractions on the app, pressing the button. And then I noticed, oh, they're like 3 minutes now. And bearing in mind, my partner had tried to come in a couple of times, because he'd been so helpful in the lead up to it, of doing this massage and
Yeah.
being there supportive and everything. And I said to him, oh, okay, during the labor, I think I could go on the ball, and then we've got this head massage as well, that will help. And he was offering, he's like, do you want me to come in? I was like,
Oh.
no, At
Stay
this
away.
point, I just wanted to be alone, and I didn't anticipate that because I'd really
Yeah.
enjoyed his support before that. But the
Funny,
rumors
isn't
were
it?
true. I wanted to just be alone, and I was really,
And you were in a small room.
yeah, I was. I was in it, like,
Mm.
bathroom is small, and I was just
Yeah.
it. By this point, it'd gone pitch black as well outside. I didn't even
Mm.
realize, and I felt really good in there.
You
And
felt safe. That's our animal
yeah,
instinct, like
yeah,
going alone to a small little space.
yeah. It was actually a really good experience in there. And then I had to let my partner know that because the team had said, call us when the contractions are 3 minutes apart and we'll send someone out. So I said, okay, it's time. They're 3 minutes. And he was like, okay, I'll call the team and then set up the pool. So I was like, yeah, yeah. And then closed the door and just carried on. And then next thing you know, I migrated to the toilet, and that's just instinctively where I wanted to be. And I felt like the pressure was building. And then I felt this like incredible need to push. It
Oh,
was,
wow.
yeah, it was like, oh my gosh, it's, yeah, like I really need to push, like she's coming.
Oh,
And
wow.
then just as that was building, the door opened and the midwife arrived. And she, at this point, I think I'd had my eyes closed, and she was like, oh, could you open your eyes? And I didn't really want to. So I opened my eyes a little bit, and I could see her kneeling on the floor next to me. And she was asking me a few questions. I think she maybe thought that I was in pain or something because of the way my face had gone. I had my eyes closed, but I wasn't at all. I was just really in the zone.
Yeah.
And she was like, are you okay? Like, I want to try and get you off this toilet because I don't I don't know if this is safe. And
You don't want the baby in the toilet.
I really didn't want to get off the toilet. I really wanted to stay there, but I was so in the zone, I think I'd lost my words, which I guess
Yeah.
is what,
So many people say that.
yeah, I'd lost the ability to communicate, which is, I guess, what's good about the birth plan because you can write that before, although I don't think I don't think they really looked at it, but it was still helpful to have it.
Yeah.
I mean, even for my partner to read it before. But she said, look, your partner's getting the pool set up, so we're gonna transfer you to there. It'd be a lot better. So even though I was looking forward to this pool, I really didn't want to go there then. I was just like, no, I'm happy here. But she did coax me out of there, and I came into the living room, and so my partner had been really good. We'd like talked a lot about like how we wanted the environment to be, and he was really on board. But when I came into the living room, it was not how we'd planned. Like, it was, the stuff for the pool was everywhere, and
Oh, yeah.
the candles were lit, but the light was on as well, so it wasn't releasing a nice glow. And I just took one look at the room, and I was like, oh god, no. This is not what I wanted. So I just closed my eyes, and I don't think I opened them again for a really long time. And this point the pool was done, so I got in there, and I think the midwife picked up on the fact that it looked like I was in active labor and something was happening. So she said, oh, I need to get someone, I can't be on my own to deliver this baby, so I need to get someone else out here. And she said, I can't do that unless I know where you're at with the birth. And I'd put in my birth plan that I didn't want to have an examination just because I thought that would break the flow of where I'd be at. And a lot of the time it is for work purposes to give an estimation, but it doesn't always offer an exact estimation of when the baby's coming from listening to so many different stories. So unfortunately, I'd lost my voice. So
Bless
I
you.
kind of just got out of the pool. I really didn't want to be getting out of the pool, but she did do the examination, and she was like, oh my God, you're 10 centimeters. Let me call the hospital. And I just felt, I wish I could have told you that
I know,
I was
yeah.
so ready to have this baby. Definitely just before she arrived, I'm certain that if she'd have come a bit later, I would have had her there in
Yeah.
the toilet.
She
And so,
disrupted you a little bit when she
yeah,
came, yeah.
definitely. And I could see that it was difficult for her as well because she'd just arrived in this strange situation, and she needed to get a view on what was going on. And I wasn't talking, and
Mm.
my partner hadn't seen me for a few hours. I did need to get some information. So I got back in the pool, and I think my midwife had said to me, like, make sure you think about this as like a marathon. You need to train beforehand, like mentally, and try and stay a bit active, not too much, but just so that you're ready for the birth. And she said snacks are going to be really helpful, like maybe some Lucozade and some jelly babies. They were, for some reason, the specific thing she'd said. So we'd got those. And I was in the pool and my partner was just feeding me the jelly babies. And at that point, I was just really relaxed. I was having a nice time, but I had this really strong feeling that pressure and feeling that something was coming had stopped.
Okay, yeah.
The midwife was suddenly aware of that as well. She was like, oh, there was suddenly now the contractions suddenly had 12, 15 minutes between them, where it was 3 minutes before.
Mm.
And then it all just sort of took a bit of a standstill. And then her second midwife arrived and was all ready to go and brought all of this equipment out all over the floor. So at this point, there was just mess everywhere. And another reason I wanted to keep my eyes closed.
Yeah.
Because they both had a bag that they'd put all over the floor space as well. And so I guess all of this wasn't really helping with my
Yeah.
positive state of mind that I'd got into. So no doubt time really stood still and the contractions really slowed down. And I got the sense from the second midwife who arrived that she was a bit disappointed because she'd been told on the phone that I was ready to go. And I got the sense that she was feeling a bit impatient. Why is this not happening?
Yeah.
And that didn't make me feel great, but I was just trying to block it out. And then I think I'm a bit unsure about the timeline, but I think actually 2 hours went by at this stage, which they said was going on into a category that was seeming too long. And one of them said, we're going to need to get this baby out now. Like, we don't have a choice. And I was like, okay. And
But like it's so frustrating
yeah,
because like why you were fine, the baby was fine. I'm
yeah,
sure they were doing the Doppler, were they, on the baby?
yeah,
Why
yeah, right.
why the rush is really crazy because
Yeah,
actually you're fine, you're 10 centimeters. It's normal to have a little rest because your body's having a
yeah,
rest so that you
yeah. And
can
that's what it
push your
was,
baby
wasn't
out.
it? It was a time for to just, and I'd heard that in other episodes where sometimes use that time to just like, okay, just have some water, have some snacks,
Yeah.
and don't get despondent at that point. Just see it as a positive. Okay, this is just a little break. We're going to go back to it. But I got the sense of, I got the work, a sense of that they were on the clock through work.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like it's not their individual fault because
Yeah,
it's the people back at the hospital who are probably ringing them,
yeah,
texting them. I've seen it happen at births where
yeah,
they're being hassled to update or to do something. And I've had midwives at birth that are like, I'm just gonna ignore my phone because they're just hounding
yeah,
me. So it's not their it's so frustrating because it's not their
yeah. The
individual
system.
fault. It's the system. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I think after that, they wanted to. They basically said that I seemed too relaxed in a pool, and they wanted to get out of it
You
because
didn't even want to get in the pool.
I
You wanted to be in the
was
bathroom.
like, hold on a minute, now I'm being taken out. The next thing, I was heaved out of the pool,
Oh, bless you.
and wow, all of a sudden, it was true. The gravity just hit, and
Oh, wow.
like a click of the fingers, I had this huge feeling, like this rush of pressure, like, oh my gosh, like it's happening just at the point it was where I was on the toilet before, was now back, but like even more intense. So they were like, okay, they were talking amongst themselves, like, let's get her like in the squat position. So we'd sorted all the living room out with shower curtains everywhere so that we could, keep everything
Yeah.
fine before. But to be honest, it wasn't the horror stories that people again were saying about home births wasn't true. There was no,
It's
it wasn't a
it's
crazy.
really not messy. It's really not.
It was fine. So anyway, I went onto the sofa and they asked me to go between my partner's legs, like hold on to his knees and get in the squat position. And yeah, that seemed to be a good position for me at that time because everything seemed to be working. I was like, okay, I can actually get her out now. And they were saying, right, on the next contraction, we really want you to push. And I remember they kept saying, push, push, push. And
Mm.
I was thinking, like, from what I'd learned before, oh no, the pushing can sometimes be like, overriding the body's natural response to get the baby out as well. But they kept you, I think it was just even just the word push, push, push. And I was like, oh no, now I feel like I'm going into the territory of the dramatic situation. But it didn't feel that bad, to be honest. I did push and I was able to get her out, I think after 2 or 3, but don't quote me on that because it's all just a
Oh,
blur.
wow.
And then next thing you know, she came out and it was just the most unbelievable feeling. It was so strange because she looked, well, in my mind anyway, and my partner, she looked like really developed as if she was already a couple months old or something. And maybe that was the image we've had in shows again of this
Yeah.
baby who looks like something out of a horror film or something. And
Yeah.
it wasn't like that. She just looked, well, they must have cleaned her a bit before giving to me. I don't think I took that in, but she just looked really healthy and happy.
Aw.
And she was just, I don't know if she was crying or not, but she had like her mouth open and she had her eyes wide open, which I don't think I
Wow.
expected. I thought
Yeah.
she was going to be like looking asleep. And she looked up at us, and it was just the most
Oh.
amazing feeling. And I'd obviously heard about trying to keep the golden hour of waiting before cutting the placenta and having the skin to skin and just having that time for you and your birth partner to enjoy. And so we were really trying to hold on to that. But I think because all of the equipment was in the living room and I was on the sofa, they, again, I think they're in a little bit of a rush to get the stuff packed up and get her weighed. They did give us some time, but it wasn't like the
Yeah.
hour that I'd imagined. But that was fine. We still, because we were aware of that and planned it for, we still got a bit of time
Yeah.
to ourselves. Whereas if I didn't think about that before, I wouldn't have even advocated for it.
Yeah.
I'd just been like, okay, what now?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I was just like completely elated. I was so happy. And another thing my midwife had said was, look, try and set up a nice snack or meal for when you've just had the baby, because again, just replenishing, like you'll be using a lot of energy. So we'd bought this really nice bread, a nice filling, and I was looking forward to a really good cup of tea. And I know it sounds silly, but that I was looking forward to that on the other side of
Yeah.
birth as well. So my partner went in to make that, and it was true. It tasted so good.
Oh,
I was just,
so
I think I
good.
was shaking because I was so tired as well. I'd been up where I'd
Yeah.
realized probably a whole day. And
Yeah.
yeah, I was really, really tired. And I suddenly felt really cold as well. So
Mm.
I birthed the placenta quite quickly afterwards, so that was good. And then they did the examination, and then she said, okay, there's a fair bit of tearing. She said, it's not,
Mm.
is it first degree where it's not too
Yeah.
deep? So
Yeah.
she said, I'm going to try and just give you some stitches here. And then she injected me with the local anesthetic.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, da 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 da. And I hadn't sort of mentally prepared for this part. I was like, da 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 da. And then she was like, oh, hold on a minute. And she went to the kitchen and she took a phone call, and she came back and she was like, I don't know if I want to continue doing your stitches because I haven't done them in a very long time.
What?
There's a bit more to do than I first thought. And so I think the best thing for you is that if we take you to hospital and do it there. She said, I know it's really disappointing because obviously you've had the home birth and part of that is to be at home afterwards. But she said, I don't want
Oh
to do
no.
something that is going to give you more problems later.
Yeah.
I'd rather be honest with you and say, I don't feel confident doing this, and have you go to hospital and do it properly.
What about the other midwife? She couldn't have done it.
I don't think so. She was just, yeah, I don't know what. She was just so busy packing. It was so much stuff.
There
And
is so much stuff.
yeah, she was just packing on stuff. It was as if like this bag was endless. The amount of stuff.
Mary Poppins.
So I was like, I felt really, because I was just so happy and elated. I
Yeah,
was all
that's
just, I
disheartening.
just said, okay, well, let's do whatever you think. And I'd kind of, it's almost as if I'd gone to the finish line of birth, and then I maybe been so exhausted as well. I'd already lost all of the stuff that I'd prepared for before, because I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I've completed the finish line, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
What I realized now is it wasn't quite over, so I could have still taken a bit of time there and said, okay, do I want to do that? Do I want to go now?
I
But
see, yeah.
I just went with it, and because of the situation, they said it needs to be an ambulance she said, I know it seems a bit dramatic, but that's the safest way to transport you there.
It's
So
probably the most comfortable way as well. You wouldn't want to be
yeah,
sat in a car,
yeah,
probably.
exactly. So
Did they take you and baby together? Because I know sometimes they
no,
send them separately. Yeah.
that was difficult. And it, even so for my partner as well, who we realized neither of us had even tried out the baby seat
Yeah. And then you
before.
got to
And
put a
then
brand new baby in a baby
exactly
seat.
like
Yeah.
hours old. And then he said to the midwife, oh, can you help me dress her? And then I was thinking, oh, what, straight into action of like, how many layers do we need of going outside? So he got her into the car seat, but he said he was absolutely terrified. He
Mm.
kept pulling over and just checking
Oh,
if she was still alive because
I know. Yeah.
he
I
was
totally
like,
get it.
he didn't know what to do. And luckily, the hospital isn't too far away from us in terms of a drive. And he was following behind the ambulance. And then by the time I got wheeled into the ward, he appeared at the doors. So I was glad that it wasn't too much time that we'd had
Yeah. Yeah.
apart. I had about probably 20 minutes away from her, and then she was back with me. But the stitches part, I think I found really, really difficult because I hadn't mentally prepared for it.
Mm.
And I wish I'd done a bit of work on that beforehand. And I think I had even listened to a an episode, but I maybe hadn't taken it in, or maybe I was distracted at
Yeah.
the time of
It's
listening.
difficult to prepare for because
Think I
you
won't
just
be me.
don't know. Yeah. It's so hard to, and you don't know what it's going to feel like, or if you did need stitches, to what degree you would need stitches. It's really difficult to prepare for.
Yeah. And I think it was the fact that I'd gone in an ambulance. I was suddenly not at
Yeah.
home. I was in hospital. That, again, talking about fear in how you experience pain, I think that was all building up to how I
Mm.
experienced the stitches. I was actually really upset and I was crying a lot. And
Oh.
I didn't use the word pain throughout birth because I use words like pressures and period cramps to the extreme. But that experience of the stitches did feel different to me because I guess I wasn't expecting it, but also I'd just given birth. So to then have stitches,
Yeah.
I was kind of in shock.
Yeah.
So I was, yeah, a bit upset about that afterwards, but then glad of it as well because
Mm.
I think there's two camps about whether to do stitches at all afterwards.
Yeah.
But in terms of going to the toilet afterwards, it really helped.
Yeah.
So that was one good thing. And actually, to be in hospital for the few hours we got to sleep there, we were given a mound of toast and yogurt and juice. And we had her first check while we were in there by one of the
Okay. Yeah.
midwives. And actually, the experience there was really positive. The staff were all really nice and understanding. And it was quite nice to just have that quick bit of contact with
Yeah, I get that.
people to ask questions and say, what to expect. And they said, okay, you can go now. We were just there for a few hours.
Oh, good. So you weren't
Yeah.
kept
No,
in
we
or
weren't there
anything.
long at
Yeah.
all. They were very happy to send me home. It wasn't like
Yeah.
a detailed thing that they did. I think it was just the way I
Yeah.
experienced it was more
And
because I was feeling fear.
it wasn't because because your tear was so bad that
No.
you needed to be in the hospital. It was because the midwife wasn't able to do it herself.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
found out afterwards that she hadn't done a birth in 15 years.
What?
Now, again, someone questioned me on that and said, are you sure you can still practice as a midwife if you've done that? So maybe don't quote me on those years, but
But
I'm
also
sure
to
that's what I heard in the
chuck her
ambulance.
back into a home birth after not having done a birth for 15 years.
So what I found out afterwards was when my partner called the midwife team, they told him that there was no one available. The home birth team were down. So the person he spoke to said, "Let me see if I can do a call out on our group chat and get back to you." So one of them had put a message out across the hospitals and said, "There's someone who wants to have a home birth. Is anyone available to go out to her?" And sure enough, that woman had responded and come round. And that's why she needed it. Started to make sense to me afterwards of why
Yes.
she was like, oh, I need someone else here. And the other person who came, I don't think they even knew each other, but she'd come from another hospital. She was
Yeah.
obviously released from hospital on a short period of time because there might have been a crisis happening back there. So everything started to make sense of little
Yeah.
things that didn't quite feel very in line with the home birth team that I was seeing
Yeah.
before. It made sense because they weren't home birth midwives.
Yeah.
But I was so grateful for them to coming out because if they didn't, I wouldn't have had the home birth and got
No,
to
you
have
wouldn't.
that amazing experience. So
Yeah.
even though it wasn't, again, it comes back to not everything went to plan, I was
Yeah.
still so grateful of them to come out and obviously try and adapt as quickly as they could to a situation which they're not
Yeah.
usually in.
Yeah. No wonder she was like, she wanted you off the toilet, but
Yeah,
also she was like, I need to call the second midwife. No wonder
yeah,
she was a bit like that. It does
yeah.
make sense.
And so hearing, realizing that, I was like, oh, okay, I can start to piece a few things together. And I'd heard there was a couple of people that were looking for home births around that few days as well, and they weren't able to get them. That
Oh
they
wow.
didn't. There was like no very low staff in the hospitals as well. So I think someone went up to a local hospital and was turned away and then sent even further out.
Oh my
So I
God.
feel really grateful that I was able
Yeah.
to get that despite all odds, because it was just really such an amazing experience, and to have that, I guess, privacy and space to feel connected to my body and like feel that empowerment, it all helped towards me having a positive birth, because it was
Yeah.
just, yeah, it's all the oxytocin was flowing. And definitely I can see that part where I was moved rooms and everything, and that slowed everything down. It was so in line with what I'd learned about the process of birth and how your body
Yeah.
reacts. It was textbook what happened there.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just feel like involving my partner in it as well, and him doing some of the training before and us talking about it again were good foundations
Mm.
for how we were going to parent together afterwards as
Yeah.
well. Him being there and us relying on each other, and maybe me relying on him a little bit more in certain aspects as well. It really helped us in the start of being parents together as
Yeah.
well, like
It's
those
that bond,
the
isn't it?
principles. Yeah,
It deepens the bond and the
yeah,
trust as well. Yeah.
exactly. I felt, yeah, really supported, and that that then led on to how we were doing things afterwards. So yeah,
Yeah. Wow.
I really just, I can't thank your podcast and everything that I've
Yeah.
learned beforehand, because it just didn't happen by chance. Like there
Yeah.
had to be, like, there was a lot of work that went into it, of flooding myself with all of this information and searching for this information which should be widely available and should be things that we talk about regularly with each other, but it's still seen as an isolated event. And
I
even the
know.
idea of a home birth, people thought that there's, you know, oh, that's unsafe, especially if you're having your first birth, to be at home.
Yeah.
So it seemed to be going against the grain, although for me it just, it doesn't make sense why that experience should be
I
against the grain
know.
or something abnormal. But
No.
yeah, it's really interesting.
Oh, wow. Oh, thank you. I love that. What a great story. How amazing. What a lovely first experience for you as
Yeah,
well. You really obviously did soak everything up and take everything on board and really prepare as well, which just does
mm,
make such a difference when you prepare.
yeah,
Obviously, something like hypnobirthing, it doesn't just work because we believe that it's going to work. It works
yeah,
because you put that time and effort into really learning how to relax and learning how to work with your mind and trust your instincts and things like that, which
yeah,
is what you did. And that's why you were able to do that and go so internal during your birth and
yeah.
relaxed. I mean, yeah, it's amazing. Thank you, Sinead. That's
No worries.
yeah, a
I'm so
great
happy to come
story.
back and share that story with the community as well, because I
Yeah.
was helped so much by hearing people's
Yeah.
stories on this podcast as well, and all different types of stories. People that went to hospital as well. That was really helpful to just get
Yeah.
an understanding of what that experience is like, and
Yeah.
kind of just take the fear of the unknown out of it as well. It's good
Yeah.
to, it's, yeah, get a wide range of stories and normalize all different types of birth.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, thank you, Sinead. It's
No
been lovely to
worries.
talk to you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye.